Hey, everybody, it's Devin.
And Kate again.
Welcome to Med Crimes.
We just keep showing up.
Listen, everyone, I want you to know Kate and I are the definition of dedication.
Yep. You're welcome.
We know that you want us more than every other Tuesday. And we know that we can't really do it, but we make sure that this thing gets out every other Tuesday.
You're fucking right, we do.
We attempted about an hour ago to start recording remotely.
And there were big problems.
There was so much shit that was getting in the way.
Devin forgot her microphone.
First of all, my
Problem
microphone was across the desk.
And I was like, why are you so quiet?
And I'm
like,
talking like you guys
fine.
can hear me.
And I was like, Devin, I think we should start over. And she was like, nah, we'll keep it in there. It'll just be like a disaster
It'll
moment.
spice
And I
it
was
up.
like,
They'll
okay.
be like, there goes Devin again, not knowing how to do her microphone. What microphone? And I said, I'll see you in 20.
And here we are. And yeah, we were just having way too many connection issues and there was a big delay and we just couldn't make it work. So here we are, Thursday night, 9 p.m. and our kids are in bed and we're awake talking about fucking Tylenol murders.
Talking about the fucking Tylenol. We are going to pull an all-nighter.
A little bit.
To get this done.
This is happening.
I'm sure you guys are like, wait, Kate just said Thursday, so you had days to figure this out. But we got birthday parties. We got vacations. Tonight's the night.
We got shit to do, bro.
Tonight's the night to get this to you guys on Tuesday.
Because we love you.
We have dedication.
You know
I'm going to see Kate 12 hours from now at work. But here we are in her basement partying it up.
We are, though.
To talk about this.
You know what else we have aside from dedication?
2 Patreons.
Fuck yeah, we
do. And
I
know this because we previously recorded it in a half an hour ago.
Yeah, but now we're going to do it better.
We're going to do it again.
Yep.
And better.
So we have Avril.
Avril.
Ooh.
You're kind of Madonna-esque, Avril.
With the one name, agreed. And then we also have a Jess, also doing a singular name thing. But I think in the previous recording, we decided it was more of a Beyonce vibe.
Yes, it was a Beyonce vibe.
You never
Welcome
know.
to the family, Jess and Avril.
You guys
love the
so
mystery.
much ass. And Madonna and Beyonce, I mean, Avril and Jess, you guys are amazing. And also, you guys are like the super sexy, like stealthy werewolves. But to clarify, you are not the ones that like can't control yourselves and turn into like a frenzied beast. You're like the sexy kind. Yeah, that's you. You're the sexy kind that you can change wherever you want, whenever you want, and you like howl at the moon and you fucking cause mischief in the forest like a total awesome babe. And that is what you guys are. Sexy werewolves.
Welcome to the family, you sexy werewolves.
Hell yeah, welcome to the family. We love you.
So Kate, you're going to tell us about some Tylenol murders.
I did mention the Tylenol murders. So this is going to be a two-parter because I love me a two-parter. Two-parter. And we are going to be talking about the Tylenol murders. So the Chicago Tylenol murders refer to the 1982 drug tampering event that resulted in the deaths of 7 people in the Chicago area. And so today, what we're going to be talking about are sort of the initial events when people started getting sick and dying and nobody had no idea what was going on, and how the pieces kind of came together and someone figured out, holy shit, it's the Tylenol.
I want to know that aha moment.
So
light switches on. Yes. It's the fucking Tylenol.
And it is wild. And can I just say, this is probably the most chaotic episode that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
This whole fallout of how it starts. So I've I referred to a piece that was in the Chicago Tribune where they did like an anniversary piece, years after the event, and they put together this whole timeline of how the first day unfolded. And it's wild because everything starts happening at once. 7 people sort of get sick and die essentially all at once.
Wow.
And everybody in the area is like, what's going on? So I am going to issue a trigger warning because the victims do include a child, a 12-year-old child. And it will be the first victim that I talk about. So if that's not your bag, skip forward a couple of minutes and pick us up afterwards. So, without further ado, let's do this. So, this was on a massive scale, and the fallout from this was so massive and multifaceted that it impacted the Chicago area and like the nation actually for years. And on this side of the millennium, the investigation actually has continued, which we will get into more so in part 2. But I will start again with the day in question when everything sort of started to fall apart. So, September 29th, 1982 is our day.
41 years ago.
41 years. And this tragic medical mystery begins to unfold, beginning with just a sore throat and runny nose. Mary Kellerman, a 12-year-old girl from Elk Grove Village, which is a suburb of Chicago, told her mom and dad around 8 a.m. that she was feeling under the weather. Her mom looked in the medicine cabinet, saw some extra-strength Tylenol, and gave her 1 capsule to her, in hopes that it would help her sore throat. Less than an hour later, her father, Dennis, recalls that, quote, I heard her go into the bathroom. I heard the door close. He then recalls that he hears something drop on the bathroom floor, and he went up to bathroom door because it just sounded unusual, suspect. And he calls out, Mary, are you okay? And there's no answer. So he calls out again, Mary, are you okay? Still no answer. He opens the door and finds his daughter unresponsive on the floor, still in her pajamas. Dennis immediately, of course, panics, calls 911 when he realizes she will not wake up. A firefighter and inspector with the Elk Grove Village Fire Department who was on the scene recalled that, quote, we have some of the best paramedics I have ever met working on her. They threw everything in that drug box at this young lady and nothing made a difference.
Oh, no.
They immediately loaded her up and transferred her to the nearest hospital, which was Alexian Brothers Medical Center in Elk Grove Village. It was there that by 9:56 a.m., Mary Kellerman had unfortunately been pronounced dead.
Oh, wow.
So, of course, she had a sore throat 2 hours ago, and all of a sudden it's 10 a.m. and she's gone.
After 500 milligrams.
Yes.
1 capsule
of extra strength Tylenol. So this obviously all happened extremely quickly, and it was like this bizarre medical mystery.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
and
please.
You might get to this, but in the medicine cabinet, was this a new bottle?
Yes.
Okay.
So the deputy chief medical examiner for Cook County at the time, Edward Donahue, was notified of her death when it happened. And plans were made to bring her in for an autopsy because the medical staff were like, I got to tell you, I don't know, there's a few things this could have been. How does a 12-year-old
die from a runny nose and a little bit of a sore throat?
Exactly. They could not. They were like, this is a really horrific, awful, tragic medical mystery. We don't know. We don't have answers. Please do an autopsy. So of course, the family consented, and due to her age and circumstances surrounding her death, she was accepted for autopsy. And at the time, a medical event or severe illness was suspected because she had been like a little symptomatic with a sore throat. Nobody really suspected foul play because, the story all just sounded like she had, a medical event and a collapse of some kind, but nobody really thought that, anything malicious had happened.
And there was no signs of like a head trauma,
no,
like in the bathroom.
There was no trauma. There was nothing. So, additionally, an investigator with the Cook County's medical examiner office did a phone interview with her father, Dennis. So he's actually He works for the medical examiner's office, but he's an investigator. So it's his job to kind of piece together what happened to present that information to the medical examiner so they can build like an actual cause of death and circumstances. So he's trying to find some information about what happened. So he calls up Dennis, her father, and is asking her, what was she doing? You know, did she sleep well at night? What did she do yesterday? What was she eating? You know, anything that could give us a clearer picture of what happened. So he interviews the father, and then he and the police went to the house to examine the scene because they're trying to figure out what the heck happened. So nothing to them appeared innocuous. You know, there was nothing that could have caused this. There was nothing, obvious that they identified that was like, the smoking gun. So they did notice that when looking over the ambulance report, it was documented that Mary's parents had notified the paramedics that she received Tylenol recently. So she had mentioned that's the only thing that happened is we gave her a Tylenol. This didn't originally raise any red flags because, I mean, everybody took Tylenol. Yes. Why would it? You know what I mean? So the investigation is underway. They still really don't have any answers, but everyone is hoping to get more answers as to what happened when we get the autopsy. That's sort of where we're at with Mary Kellerman, 12 years old, who just died at 9:56 a.m. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. So, Adam Janis, a 27-year-old postal worker from Arlington Heights, which is another suburb of Chicago, had taken a sick day on the same day, Wednesday, September 29th, 1982, from his job working at the post office, as he felt as if he was getting a cold. Around noontime, Adam had reportedly went to pick up his children from preschool, his young children, and after he picked them up, he stopped at a local store called The Jewel. There was like a little string of stores in the area called The Jewel, and it was like a convenience store. And he picked up some Tylenol. He came home. They all had lunch together. He told his family, I'm not feeling great. I'm going to take a couple of Tylenol and I'm going to go lie down.
Oh,
reportedly, minutes later, his wife said he comes staggering into the kitchen, like not saying anything, and then immediately collapses on the ground. So around 3:15 p.m.,
thank God he was home and not driving.
Can you imagine?
If it was minutes later.
Yes, exactly.
Because if he was that bad, you take it in the car.
Yeah, exactly. So he thankfully waited until he got home. So around 3:15, 911 was called to the home for an unresponsive male patient. Similar story. EMS attempt to stabilize him on the scene, but quickly realized that they just need to get him to the hospital because nothing is working. They're giving all the meds in the box. They're giving him oxygen. It's not happening. Nothing is working to stabilize him. So they get him to the hospital, and he's immediately transported to Northwest Community Hospital and admitted there to the ICU. Now, Dr. Thomas Kim is the medical director of the ICU and the attending intensivist on his case. And he was a heavy contributor into the piece that I read that kind of put together this whole timeline because he was part of the team that kind of figured this out. So he recalled that, quote, our first job is to resuscitate, but we couldn't even do that. His heart just would not resuscitate. And he recalled having signed his death certificate citing suspected cardiac death because he didn't know.
Wow. How many hours did he live?
So he was in the ICU for a few hours before he passed away. Wow. But he did eventually pass away.
Oh, gosh.
He recalled speaking with his family, his young wife, who was, also in her 20s, and she had these 2 kids, and he had siblings. He had parents, who he was really close to. Dr. Kim recalled speaking with his family, trying to explain what happened, stating, quote, even when I did not have a great explanation, it's hard even if you know the diagnosis, and trying to tell them that we didn't know was extremely difficult. Adam's wife, Teresa, was there, and she saw everything. His parents were there. A whole slew of other people were there. So, I mean, it's evident that he had a lot of people that really cared about him. There were a bunch of friends that were there that all showed up. So, I mean, this guy, he was really only just beginning his life. He was only 27 years old, had the 2 young kids, which is just like,
tragic.
Again, unbelievably tragic that this happened. So similarly, nobody has any answers, and plans are made to send him to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy.
Now, at this point, yes, we're in suburbs of Chicago, but these are different hospitals? Okay. Because obviously they're not thinking at this moment, this is similar to the 12-year-old girl
right,
2 hours ago.
Yeah,
whatever.
because they hadn't gotten that news. They had no idea. So similarly, nobody had answers, so plans were made to send him to the medical examiner's office for the autopsy. And all these people that had shown up to the hospital to support Adam's family ended up leaving together and going back to Adam's house after leaving the hospital. File this, it's important.
So I'm filing it. All of them are leaving together.
To go back to Adam's house.
To his house.
Yes.
Okay.
So fast forward
it's filed.
It's filed. So fast forward to about 3:45 in the afternoon. Mary Lynn Rayner, a 27-year-old, is at her home in Winfield, which is just outside of Chicago. She has recently given birth to her 4th child. And by recently...
I don't want to hear this one.
By recently, she was a week old. This baby was a week old. She had just given birth a week ago.
Oh, no.
I know. Isn't this wild? This is so sad.
Oh, no.
I know.
I'm just thinking of all the reasons people take Tylenol for.
I know.
And it's so vastly...
yeah.
Oh, no.
I know. Exactly.
So now we have a 12-year-old. We haven't even gotten to this girl yet. A 27-year-old man...
And a 27-year-old woman, mom of 4 kids.
Week and 1 week postpartum.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
So she had recently given birth. She had 3 young children, and then the 4th, who was a newborn. And she was feeling under the weather and sore, so she took some Tylenol. Her husband, Ed Rayner, recalls that he came home right after she had fallen on the floor. So he got there essentially right as
I'm heartbroken.
Minutes after.
And we're 3 people in.
Yes. So he immediately freaks out, calls the ambulance, and she was rushed to a third. So this is the 3rd hospital, Central DuPage Hospital in Winfield, which again, just outside of Chicago, where she was eventually pronounced dead.
Oh my gosh.
So Ed, her husband, recalled of her, quote, "We were together for a long time. She was an excellent mother. We had 4 children, and the baby was only a week old." And end quote. He was, of course, devastated and had absolutely no answers, and plans were made again to send her for an autopsy. So thus far, we're three different people at 3 different hospitals within one day. No real connections are being made yet because, again, these are all happening during one day, all at different hospitals. Right, exactly. So, until the following happens, this starts really raising some red flags.
Okay.
Remember Adam Janis, the second man to have died, the 27-year-old who just passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So that afternoon, that entire family had gone home to his house.
Mm-hmm.
And the family and friends are all at Adam's house mourning together, reflecting what the hell happened. This is so tragic. They're talking about making funeral plans, their son and brother and daughter and
when yesterday
husband
was a healthy 27-year-old.
Yes, this morning he was fine. So, I mean, this was just a devastating reality for them, and they were all just kind of trying to stick together and absorb everything. Now, Adam's younger brother, Stanley Janis, has some chronic back issues.
Oh, no.
He asks his
younger brother?
Yeah. He asks his wife, whose name is also Teresa, interestingly enough, he asks his wife to go into the brother's medicine cabinet and grab him some Tylenol because my back is acting up. She came out, handed him the Tylenol capsules.
Oh, fuck.
She, at that moment, also was evidently having some kind of ache and pain because as she handed it to him, she took 2 Tylenol capsules.
Oh, no.
Literally minutes later, Stanley collapses, closely after followed by his wife, Teresa.
Oh, my gosh.
So EMS is again dispatched to this house, and Charles Kramer, who's the lieutenant of the Arlington Heights Fire Department, recalled about the scene, quote, "When I arrived at the house, there were cars and people everywhere. All 8 of my men on duty were working at this house. 4 on a man, 4 on a woman.
Wow.
Everything what happened to the man happened to the woman a few minutes later. Like the exact same pattern."
Man.
So the 2 were quickly loaded and transferred to the nearest hospital, which was, of course, the hospital that Adam was brought to.
Yeah.
So now
3 from the same family.
Same
household.
At the same household.
Yes.
And remember Dr. Kim, the medical director of the ICU?
Mm-hmm.
This was close to the end of his day. So he's in his office. He's changing out of his white coat, and he's putting on his blue blazer. And
very 80s of him.
Very 80s. And the nurse comes running back to his office, and she said to him, "Hey, Dr. Kim, we're bringing back the Janus family." And he thinks to himself, "Oh, maybe the parents have come back and want, have more questions." And he said, "Yeah, of course." The nurse replied, "No, it's his brother." And Dr. Kim was so shocked, having only spoken with both of them hours before, and they were totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy his brother was a 6 foot tall, otherwise perfectly healthy guy. And he asked what happened. The nurse replied, "I don't know. They're doing CPR. And I just heard that they're bringing the wife back too." And at that moment, he removes his blue blazer. He puts his white coat back on. And he gets back to work in the ICU.
Wow. They must be thinking at this point, and maybe you'll get there, but like environmental poisoning, something in the household, right?
Exactly.
Like an like something.
Exactly. There's got to be something toxic
that
everyone is getting exposed to here. Sadly, Stanley Janus and his wife Teresa Janus both passed away.
Oh my goodness.
Now,
Wow.
The first call to the community health department came from Arlington Heights Fire Department because they were the ones that responded to the scene, having been there earlier for Adam, and were now working on 2 other people from the same household with the same circumstances. So as soon as they got Teresa and Stanley transferred to the hospital, they picked up the phone and called community health because they were like, something is going on in this house.
Yes. Yep.
So this was
that poor family.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. 3 loved ones in a day.
Yes. They had been and this fire department had been present at all 3 events.
And the poor EMS staff to have to do this to three 20-year-olds.
Oh my God. How traumatic.
We hear things from EMS workers that we work with, and when they've had to do CPR on someone and it doesn't end up working and they lose a patient. 3 in a family, all in their 20s.
I mean, that's one of those things that like sticks with you.
You don't get over that.
No, you don't. And it had to have been scary from them too, because, when you're working on multiple people from the same household, your mind is going to, what are these people getting exposed to?
What are they breathing in? What are they touching?
And then what am I breathing in because I'm here? You know what I mean? So like it's scary for a million different reasons. So Charles Kramer, the lieutenant, had been present for all 3 events. So he's the one that actually picked up the phone and called community health. And he stated to the nurse, quote, "There is something going on here. We had a death this morning, and now we brought in more from that same house. And they want a public health person here. And you are the only public health person I know.
Tag.
So tag, you're it." So he was speaking to Arlington Heights' only public health worker, a public health nurse by the name of Helen Jensen. And we love us some Helen Jensen.
Helen Jensen.
She's basically a huge hero.
Thank goodness.
Thank God for Helen Jensen. So she becomes instrumental in this case and is credited for her superb investigative skills and making the initial connection to the Tylenol, or at least raising the question. So she immediately is like, yep, this sounds fucked up.
Suspect.
I'm going to go to the hospital now. So around this time, that same evening, the medical examiner's office starts to realize that something unusual is going on because they've now been notified of many suspicious deaths in the area, and they're starting to wonder, okay, what the fuck's going on? So the main tip off to them that was immediately alarming was now the 3 people from the same household that suddenly deteriorated and had like a cardiovascular collapse, all in the same household. All 3 of them later dying with no plausible explanation. So Deputy Medical Examiner Donahue was notified by his colleague that something unusual was going on around the circumstances, particularly in the Janus household, because it all happened in the same house. Now, Helen Jensen, that public health nurse on the case, arrives at the hospital and she starts her own investigation. So she finds this lonely, poor little lady standing in a corner looking very distressed and confused. It was Teresa Janus, Adam's wife, who had not taken any Tylenol.
Oh, no.
And her husband died.
But she just watched 3 people die.
3 of her very close family. Her husband, the father of her young kids, first this morning, and now 2 other, and she's freaking the hell out. What's going on?
And probably worried about her children.
And concerned about her kids, exactly. So she's obviously very distressed. So her world is entirely collapsing around her. So Helen Jensen approaches her and starts asking questions about, the exact circumstances around every single person's deterioration and collapse. What were they doing that day? What did you guys eat this morning? Had anything changed within the house? Are there renovations? Could there be mold? They need to find some consistency between the cases and make some kind of connection. And she recalled of that conversation, quote, and I love this quote, actually. She had stated, quote, "I ask a lot of questions. I am a nurse, and you do not get answers if you don't ask the questions." End
I love
quote.
that.
We love that for her. So the investigator for the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, Nick Pichos, I think is how you say it, Pishos, Pichos, maybe, connects with the nurse, Helen Jensen, because he has arrived at the hospital to conduct part of his investigation. And he and Helen Jensen kind of start working together on this investigation. After questioning Adam's wife, they were really no closer to an answer. There didn't seem to be anything obvious that tied them all together. So the next step for them was to go to the Janus house again together and see if they could find out what's out of the ordinary here. Meanwhile, so they're headed to the Janus house. Meanwhile, it's about 6:30 p.m. that same day.
Oh, boy.
Mary McFarland is a 31-year-old resident of Elmhurst who told her coworkers that she had a really bad headache. Now, she was working at an Illinois Bell store in Lombard, which is just outside of Chicago, which again is sort of like a convenience store. A coworker later recalled that she had gone into the back room to take some Tylenol.
Oh, boy.
Within minutes of coming back on the floor, she was on the floor.
Oh, wow.
EMS was called. Mary McFarland was transferred to now a 4th hospital, Good Samaritan Hospital in Downers Grove, which is again is a suburb of Chicago.
Wow.
And she hung on for 2 days, but was pronounced dead 2 days later.
Wow.
Now, around 8 p.m. that day, Helen Jensen and investigator Pichos and some police officers arrive at the Janus residence to start their investigation of what's going on in Arlington Heights. They recalled that they expected to walk into the house and immediately know the answer. Maybe they smell, some kind of gas or a carbon monoxide detector's going off, something. Nothing. It was nothing like that. Upon initial look around, there was absolutely nothing innocuous. Nothing appeared to have been contaminated. There was no obvious chemical exposure source. The air quality was fine. Everything that they were looking for, to consistently tie something together, they just didn't have anything. So they go room to room. They decide to go into the basement, and they did find that there was some metalworking done down there recently. And Mr. Pichos, the investigator, kind of realized, well, there are some chemicals in metal polishings, and it does typically contain traces of cyanide. And these all do kind of sound like cyanide-related deaths. I mean, that would make sense physiologically, but there's not nearly enough of the chemical present to have caused the collapse of 3 people. Even if they all walked into the basement and put their faces in it and smelled it, it would not have killed 3 people.
That's not enough exposure to it.
Yeah, exactly. So now Helen Jensen moves back upstairs. She starts going through with a fine-tooth comb. She goes through the medicine cabinet. Nurse Jensen finds a bottle of Tylenol, and she notices that it is a relatively new-looking bottle, and there were only 6 capsules missing. 6 capsules and 3 dead people.
She counted it?
She counted the capsules, and she noticed that there were 3 doses missing and 3 dead people.
Okay. Nice job.
I know. Now, at this time, there's no protective sealant on pill bottles.
Okay, so this was not a thing in the 80s.
This was not a thing in the early 80s, and came as a result, partially, of this, which, again, we'll get into in part 2. So, they did have cotton, so just the cap and the cotton, but no protective sealant. So she recalled Adam's wife stating that he took Tylenol immediately prior to the collapse and suspected that the other 2 might have as well. So she brings her suspicions to her colleagues, and they take the bottle with them because they're like, maybe something weird is going on with the Tylenol. I don't know.
Thank God they did.
I know, and police were they thought ahead because police were there so they could like preserve the chain of custody in case they found something. So police were there, they preserved
But also
the chain.
like thank God they did because maybe the widow from Emotions had a headache later that night and would have taken Tylenol and
so incredible forethought here by everybody.
I love that.
So they get back to the hospital because Dr. Kim is still there dealing with the fallout of all this, and also they want to talk to the doctor about medically speaking, what could be going on here? Could it be related to the Tylenol? We don't know. So, he was starting to get really frustrated. He recalled in this piece that I read that, him not being able to figure out what was going on to cause the deaths of 3 very young people and the impact that had on him, and it's something that he'll just never forget. So, Helen Jensen, Investigator Pichos, and the police officers approached Dr. Kim and discussed their findings and what they thought about the Tylenol. And as well as everything that they checked the house for, they could rule a lot of stuff out just by what they didn't see.
Yep.
So he heard mention of the metal polishings and maybe cyanide. And he started thinking to himself, that would explain a lot if it were cyanide poisoning of some kind. It sounds very outlandish, but from a medical standpoint, it makes
matches
sense.
the characteristics of the clinical
exactly
case
the
that they
rapid
showed.
Deterioration, the rapid collapse, the fact that they could not be resuscitated despite everything that they tried, that made sense. So he recalled later when he was discussing this whole situation with the Associated Press, quote, "But I said, no, where's the exposure? And the only way I could test was to check the blood for cyanide, and I had never done that. I had never even heard of it. I had no idea how. We did not do that at the hospital.
Right.
Someone, maybe another doctor told me about some labs that I could send out, so I ordered some special tests, and I sent the lab samples." So, end quote. So,
but I'm sure at that point it took weeks.
So it didn't actually.
It didn't?
It was
good.
Very quick.
Okay, that's good.
Yes, thankfully, yes.
I would have just assumed that outsourcing to a different lab and new rare testing would have taken a long time.
Because of the circumstances, they were able to prioritize it, and they made arrangements to make this come through as fast as humanly possible.
That's great.
And remember when I told you about little Mary, who passed away as our
12-year-old
first victim? Yes. Her mom had mentioned to paramedics she took Tylenol, that's all that happened.
Yeah.
In an incredible stroke of amazing luck and forethought, she gave the bottle of Tylenol to them.
Oh, she did?
Took when the paramedics were there for her and said, here's the Tylenol she took. And the paramedics had it, and they had it with her belongings.
Oh, thank God.
I know.
Wow.
It's wild. And on a later interview, her mom recalled, quote, "That was the only thing that I could think to do that could be of help. It was the last thing she did before she died."
Oh, my God.
Which is so heartbreaking, but so instrumental in figuring out what the hell happened. This one just moment of, here, take the Tylenol, Dr. Kim is given this bottle of Tylenol from the Janus household, and the investigator Pichos, hears of this bottle of Tylenol from that fire department, and he gets that bottle of Tylenol.
How do you hear about that?
So I don't really know. It's just,
okay.
Whatever happened. He found out about it. I'm not sure if maybe they called and said she took Tylenol right before she collapsed. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Here's the Tylenol. So they now all have their hands on these 2 different bottles of Tylenol. And he immediately turns the bottles over and notices that they both have the same control number or lot number.
Okay.
This is lot number MC2880. So that becomes like a big thing. So again, the control number and lot number, we use the terms interchangeably.
Yeah.
So now he immediately gets on the phone with a deputy medical examiner and he shares his suspicions. And they talk about that the doctor is suspecting maybe a chemical exposure of some kind or a poisoning, maybe with cyanide, because medically that would make sense. And Dr. Donahue, the medical examiner, tells him, quote, open the bottles and smell them. So,
really?
Investigator Pichos opens the bottles, he pours them out, he looks at the capsules, nothing looked out of the ordinary, just a whole bunch of identical Tylenol capsules. But as he poured them out, he noticed a strong smell of almonds.
Oh?
He opened the second bottle, same thing, they looked fine, but he smelled strongly of almonds. And
really?
They both said the same thing at the same time. It's cyanide.
Cyanide smells like almonds.
Apparently.
Wow. That is something I never knew.
I didn't know that before this moment either. So, cyanide, or more specifically potassium cyanide, we've discussed in many previous episodes, but for continuity's sake, or in case you missed it, we'll discuss the mechanism here again briefly. So cyanide naturally occurs. It's a naturally occurring compound. It's found in a number of plants, certain seeds, and nuts, just as peach pits. Such as peach
there
pits.
It is.
Almonds, yes, it is found in actually decent quantities in almonds, apricot pits, and apple seeds. So when it occurs naturally, it's in very, very small trace elements. Nothing that you could poison yourself with, even if you ate a whole bag of almonds. Which
that's good.
That's me. I love to eat almonds. So it would never cause any harm to anyone just by eating a few apple seeds. But it is highly toxic, however, in large amounts. So a cyanide mechanism is that it is an inhibitor of the enzyme cytochrome C oxidase, and that is a part of the electron transport chain, which is found in the inner membrane of the mitochondria of the cell.
This is bringing me back to like chemistry.
I know that's a lot of terms. Essentially, it binds to the iron within this protein, which then prohibits the transport of the electrons from the cytochrome C to oxygen and vice versa. So what it's doing...
Totally followed that.
What it's doing, this is all a very fancy way of saying it is essentially disrupting the chain that allows cells to accept and use oxygen. So it creates a widespread asphyxiation,
suffocation from the inside.
Exactly right. Most of our tissues depend critically on aerobic respiration and can very quickly start to die without it. So essentially it creates an environment within your body where you are asphyxiating. Even if you're walking, breathing, taking in oxygen, it doesn't matter because your body can't use that oxygen. And then in turn, it creates that same effect that suffocation does from a medical standpoint. So it causes, low blood pressure, heart rates that are too slow or too fast, dizziness, mental status changes, and within minutes, collapse. This also explains why resuscitative efforts are typically not effective unless they receive the antidote. Like if they realize very quickly it's cyanide, then sure, you can give the antidote and it will fix that. Because no matter what you do, no matter what medicines you give, and no matter how well you're ventilating, even if they're on a ventilator, they can't use the oxygen. So you're not gonna fix it. So the tissue within the bodies just continue to die. The antidote is called hydroxyzocobalamin, which is a long word. and it binds to the cyanide to form cyanocobalamin, which is like vitamin B12. And
I was going to say, we give that all the time.
Yep. And it's excreted and the body gets rid of it safely. And the problem is cyanide acts so quickly within minutes. By the time anyone realizes that so-and-so has been poisoned with cyanide, it's typically,
too late.
There's brain damage, there's, end organ damage, and there's just not much to be done.
Wow.
So, the medical examiner, Dr. Donahue, later added that he felt very fortunate in that moment because that investigator was able to smell the cyanide, and apparently only half of the population can smell it. It's one of those weird little things.
What? Really?
That only half of human beings can smell a certain thing, and this is one of them. So only half of people can smell cyanide. Isn't that interesting?
I want to know if it's 1 out of 2 people, which one of you and I can smell it?
I don't know. I don't have any cyanide on me to test this.
Darn.
I know.
Darn.
I know.
Wow.
I know. So, the investigators are now looking at 5 deaths, all with the same circumstances, with reports.
We were at 6. Oh, but they're only looking at 5 now.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, who knows where the hell each one of them was purchased? And they're like, there's cyanide in this Tylenol. And they're just like filling with dread because at this point, this is all that's known about this. They have no idea how widespread this is. Is this one lot? Is it all over Chicago? Is it all over the state? Is this just a few bottles?
Right.
I mean, they're like panicking because they're like, again, is it entire shelves full of Tylenol? Are we going to start?
Is this the only lot number that's affected?
Yes,
or is
we
there
don't
more?
know. Or is it more? Is it many stores or one store that everyone's getting the same thing for? Or is everybody in the state about to get hospitalized after they take Tylenol? Like, what is going on? They had no idea what the scale was. So this was absolutely unprecedented. They had no idea what to do. So to confirm their suspicions, Dr. Donahue asked the chief toxicologist, Dr. Michael Schaefer, to test the capsules for cyanide. Schaefer and his team determined very quickly that each of the remaining 44 capsules from the Janus bottle contained nearly 3 times the fatal amount of cyanide. Mm-hmm. Each capsule. So if you're taking 2 capsules, that's 6 times the amount that is required to kill a human being. So whoever did this wanted a fucking guarantee that these people would not survive that.
Wow.
Helen Jensen picks up the phone and called the Chicago Police Department as a first-ditch effort in a panic, just demanding to the police chief, get the Tylenol off the shelves.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? We can't do that. What do you mean?
What?
So it was all just very chaotic and weird in the beginning.
Oh my gosh.
And they said, we can't do that. We have no say in who can sell what. And like, what are you talking about, lady? And she recalled later telling them, quote, oh, yes, you can. And you will.
That a girl.
Helen Jensen,
She's
I'm telling you,
ass.
she is a bad bitch. Bad bitch alert. So, Investigator Pichos contacted Johnson & Johnson, which was the manufacturer of these particular bottles of Tylenol, to notify them of their findings.
J&J.
J&J. The following morning, September 30th, by 10 a.m., an attorney for Johnson & Johnson was sitting in the office of Dr. Donahue in the Cook County Medical Examiner's office. They reviewed their findings, the toxicology testing that confirmed that the capsules contained cyanide, the deaths that had been attributed to it thus far. They stated that they plan to immediately hold a press conference to warn people not to take Tylenol. And I don't know, what do you have to say about it, Mr. Attorney? And
wow,
he agreed that in the interest of public safety that this was absolutely necessary, and there was no way they could not release that information.
Thank God.
So this made its way up the chain of Johnson & Johnson like wildfire, super quick. So The CEO of Cook County's medical examiner office, Dr. Roy Dames, recalled, quote, "I believe I talked to the CEO of the company that made Tylenol, and I informed him that we were going to have a press conference. His reaction was, quote, 'Do you have to?' And I said, quote, 'Well, do you have a better idea?' And he said, quote, 'Nope.' So that's what we did."
Wow.
Even the CEO of Johnson & Johnson was like, "Do it. I don't know what else to tell you."
Right.
So, September 30th, so the following day, 10 a.m., Deputy Medical Examiner Donahue and the Cook County Police hold a press conference notifying area residents that they had identified cyanide within Tylenol capsules and warned that there might be danger in taking Tylenol.
Wow.
People were warned that if they had any Tylenol, don't take it, at least for a good long while.
Wow.
This incited
mass hysteria,
a mass panic.
Yeah.
Because again, it had been less than 24 hours. Nobody has any idea how widespread this is. Is this the whole country? Is this from a distributor that is making its way to the shelf, or is there some psycho just replacing a bottle here and there? We don't know at this point. By 3 o'clock that day, Johnson & Johnson had announced a recall of all Tylenol from lot MC2880. So, a lot number specific.
But you still don't know if there's more lot numbers.
No, we have no idea. We only know that these two bottles.
You can confirm that one from
exactly
that lot.
Right. Exactly. Now, again, this is massive news. Everyone's panicking. People are picking up the phone, calling the medical examiner's office left and right. They're getting inundated with phone calls. "I took Tylenol. Should I be worried?" And the medical examiner was like, "You're upright and sniffing the air and talking to me on the phone, so you're fine.
Clearly you didn't
Maybe
have
just don't take any more. Like, relax." So, Illinois Attorney General.
Could you imagine?
I
just took it an hour before I saw the news. You know, like.
Am I okay? Yeah. Am I going to die? Am I going to drop dead?
Wow.
Because you just don't know how widespread this is.
Wow.
So the Illinois Attorney General, Tyrone Bonner, gets wind of all of this while he's away at some Republican event. So, of course, he also doesn't know the scale. He's like, is this national? How far do we need to worry? He reaches out to the FBI. So now there's the FBI is involved. There's federal level law enforcement involved. So less than 24 hours, this has exploded into a very scary situation for Chicago and the surrounding area. Everybody is on high alert. It starts leaking into national news. So everyone's looking at this, watching what's going on in Chicago and wondering is this just Chicago? Is it all major cities? We just don't know.
Kind of like the beginning of COVID.
Exactly. We just didn't, there was so much we didn't know that it was very scary, Now, on October 1st, the body of 35-year-old Paula Prince was discovered in her Chicago apartment.
Oh.
On September 29th, the day that everything unfolded, Paula, who was a flight attendant with United Airlines, had just landed at O'Hare, and she had flown from Las Vegas. So after disembarking, she runs out to Walgreens at 1601 North Wells Street to purchase some Tylenol.
Oh, boy.
Now, her sister was supposed to meet her for dinner in town on the evening of September 30th, and she never showed, and this was very unlike her.
Which is how they found her in her apartment.
And she called. Paula wasn't answering her phone. She just, tried not to panic, thinking, well, she might just be jet lagged still. She probably just fell asleep. I'm not going to keep calling and try to wake her up. I'm just gonna let her be. I'll try to get a hold of her tomorrow. Now, when she no-showed for a flight she was supposed to be on the following day, that really made everybody panic because, again, very unlike her. She never would have done that without at least calling.
Wow.
So, police go to perform a welfare check after her airline co-workers call and ask for them to do that. Police found Paula near the entryway of her apartment, face down, having been dead likely for more than 24 hours at the time that they found her. When police investigated, they noticed an open bottle of Tylenol on the bathroom vanity. So, of course, news at the time that she was found, was everywhere about Tylenol. Like, that was just coming out that day. So, this death was immediately felt to be related to cyanide.
Like, boom, there's another one.
Exactly. meanwhile, Dr. Kim is starting to get blood tests back. And as we knew, it confirmed that there was over 6 times the lethal amount of cyanide present in the blood of all 3 of these victims that were at his hospital.
Wow.
Now,
who did this?
Great question.
I know. I know.
Colleagues recalled about Paula, quote, "She was vivacious, young, blonde, gorgeous smile. Whoever did this stole her dreams, her life, her future. He just destroyed all of it. Just poof, one pill, and it's gone. What makes someone want to do something like that?"
Wow.
End quote. And they start looking through some security footage of, the night that she actually bought the Tylenol. So they found a receipt of the store that it was bought at. So they were able to go to the Walgreens and look at some closed circuit TV.
Mm-hmm.
They found the security footage of Paula purchasing the Tylenol from that store on September 29th. And apparently it was very eerie to watch her go in and buy the Tylenol. They pored over the tapes, and they couldn't find any footage of any one person coming into the store and replacing bottles of Tylenol or putting something on a shelf. They could not find anything. Now, bottles were eventually recovered from Mary McFarland's home as well as Paula Prince's home. And surprisingly, they were traced to entirely different lots. So they were not a part of that MC 2880 lot. There was lot 1910 MD and lot MB 2738. So now the concern of a single contaminated Tylenol lot is completely out the window.
Now
we
it's
have
any
now
Tylenol.
3 separate lots with confirmed deaths related to that. So now there are multiple lots. So following this, panic just got a heck of a lot worse. Now we have really no idea what the scale is here. Johnson & Johnson get wind of this, and they issue a nationwide expansion of the recall they initially issued on that one lot, MC2880, and expanding it to cover the other lots identified, as well as any lot of extra strength capsules from any store in the Chicago area.
I bet you they weren't even taking regular strength now.
I would not have.
There was no 325s being given.
No. And this makes this actually one of the largest pharmaceutical recalls in U.S. history.
Wow,
this was
even still
massive. Even still. And see you next time.
That's where it stops.
That is where we stop, folks.
Recall. I'm so sad. I think of how often I take Tylenol.
Yeah, you know what happened?
I think I'm going to suck up the next headache I have.
So I researched this the other night, and then I got into my car to come home from where I was at my second job, moonlighting, and I popped a couple of Tylenol without even thinking because I was like, damn, I have a headache. And then it occurred to me,
You're like,
shit.
Oh, fuck.
I just took some Tylenol. I mean, that's exactly what happened to these other people. Like, they probably didn't even give it a second thought. Isn't that wild?
That is wild. I can't wait to hear part 2.
I know.
I'm so intrigued to figure out how, I just want to know what happened.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened and how it happened. And
we all do. It gets very, very complicated because now they're going to be trying to investigate, well, did someone just go to a whole bunch of stores and replace this? Is this an employee at Johnson & Johnson? Is this an employee at the distributor? Is this an employee, like who the hell knows?
There's a big chain from production to sales.
And what's kind of scary about this is that like a lay person who takes apart a Tylenol capsule and tries to fill it with something else and put it back together, you would know that someone fucked with that capsule. It would be kind of dented. It would be kind of weird.
Right.
But these capsules looked fucking perfect. They looked absolutely...
Because I've taken capsules apart before.
Oh, yeah.
That's very challenging.
We do
to
that
get
as nurses.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do that and put it all back together, stuff something in there, and make it look perfect.
Like it was normal.
That is not easy. There was some bigger thing at play here. I'm pretty convinced. I can't wait
to hear part 2. Can we just stay up all night and do it now?
No, I'm tired. I gotta go to bed.
I mean, me too. But, hey.
For the love of med crimes.
Wow. This is intriguing.
I know. You're welcome.
Wow.
Chew on that.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you're just as, like, perplexed as I am.
Isn't this crazy? I told you this
Wow.
episode is, like, so just, like, the energy is, like, like, panicky.
It's wild.
You know, it makes you, like, panic for this area.
It's like recall pandemic.
Yes. It's wild.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, thank you again for listening, everybody. If you want to continue checking us out, you can look for us on Facebook at MedCrimes Podcast.
You can tweet at us at MedCrimesPC.
You can search us on Instagram at MedCrimes Podcast.
Or if you wish to become a Patreon, you can find us at www.patreon.com/MedCrimesPodcast.
Or you can send your crazy stories, ideas, anything that you want to say to us at medcrimes@gmail.com.
Because we love you guys and we love hearing from you.
Thank you for listening.
Ciao, Bella.